With all the heat and sunshine this week, interspersed with thunderstorms, food has been abundant. There have been plenty of rabbits out lately, many of which have become acclimated to us. And we can still see bluebirds in most of our fields, although the tree swallows have all left. And the song of the catbird is almost ubiquitous throughout the sanctuary. Another ubiquity throughout the sanctuary are raccoon tracks. And a mother and 3 of her kits have seemed to take a liking to the bird feeder trail. And every morning, in the doorway of the barn, they seem to be waiting for us to arrive. We've had to change our feeding time for Dougie, the barn cat, since the raccoons are eating his food. We still catch infrequent glimpses of Dougie, but he's not nearly as sociable as Rocky and her family. But they're not the only bandits around the parking lot. We also have earwigs pilfering the bird seed. Along the trail sides, there's a seemingly infinite amount of insect diversity. Insects are a truly ancient lineage. The oldest insect fossil found up to date lived during the Devonian period, 396 million years ago. For comparison, dinosaurs only arose 248 million years ago and went extinct 65 million years ago. Worldwide, there are over 1 million species described. That's more than all the other animals combined. Even at the sanctuary alone, I believe one could spend a lifetime here and not discover all of the insects there are to find. And even if one did happen to discover every single insect here, one could certainly never discover all there is to know about each insect. All of their life stages, their behaviors, their intelligence, their ability to learn. All we can really catch are snapshots of their life. The fact that the functionality of our world is so dependent upon insects and we know so little about them is truly mind-boggling. But with a collaborative effort, we can chip away slowly at the mysteries of the insect world. This is an ichneumon wasp. There are well over 3,000 species north of Mexico, so an amateur such as myself can't even think about identifying it down to a species level. But there are some generalities to be learned about this family. Some identifying features include long antennae and seemingly constant motion, often with a broad yellow band through the middle. Females have a long ovipositor, which suggests that this one here is a male. Although most adults feed mainly on nectar, the larvae are known to parasitize caterpillars. Much to the gardeners' and farmers' lament, aphids are a very successful group of insects. Much of their success is due to the fact that they can reproduce asexually. This reproduction strategy enables populations to grow at exponential rates. Aphids feed on the sap of plants and therefore can wreak havoc on crops. The adults excrete droplets of sugary liquid from their abdomen, in which the young feed on. These droplets of sugary water are known as honeydew, and many ant species have learned to capitalize on this. By stroking the aphids, they can coerce them to excrete this honeydew, and which the ants themselves can feed on. However, the aphids benefit from this relationship as well. Not only do the ants protect their aphids from other predators, but late in the fall, before the winter comes, ants are known to take the eggs of aphids into their own colony. The following spring, the ants will return the larvae to their host plant to continue the cycle. In the woodlands, squirrels are busy foraging. It's never too early to begin the food cache for the long winter ahead. And toads find refuge from the summer's heat in the cool, damp forest floor. And underneath a fallen red squirrel's nest, it seems that a red-backed salamander has made his home. Although rarely seen, one of the most common sounds of the forest is the song of the eastern wood pewee. And after hearing the pewee song, it's obvious that its name is onomatopoeic. As with other members of the flycatcher family, the pewees move in during the summer months to breed. They may share the forest with other flycatcher species, but generally they divvy up the foraging grounds. And Pittonax species tend to hunt lower in the canopy than do the pewee, and the great crested flycatcher hunts higher in the canopy than does the pewee. So not only is the pewee hard to see because of its drab coloration and small stature, but also because it is in the middle of the canopy behind the cover of leaves. Just by listening, one can almost feel the aura of energy that envelops the beaver pond. There are at least 2 green herons that frequent the pond, and perhaps even roost here.
Sounds like a jungle here today.
There are plenty of tall trees and snags for them to conceal themselves in. And the waters of the beaver pond are quite fertile for a predator such as the green heron, who preys on almost any aquatic life it can find from above the surface of the water. We've seen no sign of a nest or nesting behavior with the green herons, but lack of evidence doesn't necessarily exclude the possibility. One day, the green heron flew right up to us and started barking. We're not quite sure why, but it was fascinating nonetheless. This went on for at least 4 minutes before he decided to fly away. When it did fly, it met up with another green heron. As far as I can tell, there doesn't seem to be any activity coming from the kingbird nest still, which leads me to believe that this was probably a failed nest. However, the mallard family of 5 seems to be doing well. The chicks are growing big and strong, and there seem to be no more casualties. And the family of 4 chicks also seem to be doing well. The ducklings are now almost as big as their mother, and it seems that the parents are tolerating each other now. There were a couple of scuffles in earlier weeks. And of course, they like to make stops at our bird feeder station. And we have some new babies at the pond, these water striders. They gracefully skate across the surface of the water using their anterior 4 legs. The front pair of legs is used to capture prey. The man-made pond is also full of energy right now. That willow tree on the far end of the pond is a favorite place for birds to hang out. Birds such as this kingfisher and this female red-winged blackbird that's preening herself right now. Green frogs seem to be in the midst of their breeding season right now. And we can always count on seeing our resident snapping turtle. On the surface of the pond, whirligig beetles can be seen. And below the surface, water scavenger beetles. But the true gems of this pond are the odonata, dragonflies and damselflies. They thrive in this pond because, other than a few small minnows, there are no fish to prey upon their eggs and larvae. The larvae, known as either nymphs or naiads, are fully aquatic. Most spend about a year in their larval form before climbing out of the pond and molting into their adult form. However, especially in these northern latitudes, some species can take many years before this happens. Dragonflies are a very territorial group of organisms. Common whitetails especially are notorious for this. Notice how this one barely even gets a chance to rest before he is up from his perch again to chase off another intruder. These green darner dragonflies are in the midst of mating. Male and female green darners are easily distinguished by the different colors of their abdomens. The male is holding the female captive here. While she deposits her eggs into the water, he is protecting her from other potential suitors. Until he lets her go, she is forced to follow him wherever he decides, even if that means he's dragging her through the air. This damselfly that's landing on them is a familiar bluette. Notice the pale blue tip of the abdomen, and the segments closest to it have more black than the rest of the abdomen. Damselflies in general can be distinguished from dragonflies by the more slender, abdomen and the way they hold their wings. Some dragonflies, such as this widow skimmer, deposit their eggs into the water by dipping them in one at a time. We have a fair Odonata diversity around this sanctuary. Some examples include this 12-spotted skimmer, calico pennants, eastern pond hawks, and here's a better look at the familiar bluet. There are also several other species that I didn't catch on film this week. The swamp at the far end of the property is another habitat filled with treasures. The swamp milkweed is in bloom, and if luck allows it, Baltimore orioles can still be seen. The swamp also makes a nice home for the swamp sparrow. These birds are usually hiding out in the thickets of the swamp, but every now and then they come out to the open to preen themselves. As far as we know, it is just a single individual inhabiting the swamp. Baltimore checker spots are finally starting to emerge. And one day, Matt was graced with an up-close and personal encounter with an eyed brown butterfly. The exact course of evolution for flowers is still largely unknown. However, fossil evidence suggests that the first modern flowers, as we know them today, arose sometime during the Triassic period. By the Cretaceous period, there was a great radiation of flower diversity. It seems that the timeline of flower evolution is synchronized with that of dinosaurs. Even today, there is a handful of examples in which the descendants of dinosaurs, the birds, have co-evolved with a specific species of flower. The function of most flowers is to entice mobile animals such as birds and insects to do the reproduction work for them. They do this by rewarding the animals with something they want, such as sweet, sugary nectar. Today, they are amongst the most successful groups of plants with nearly 300,000 known species. The tradition of cultivating flowers goes back for millennia. We still do it today for food, such as corn and wheat and cucumbers. Some gardens are done for aesthetic beauty alone, such as the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And some do it to attract their favorite pollinators, such as birds and butterflies. This week we've seen eastern-tailed blues, silver-spotted skippers, and cabbage whites. The last thing that I should mention is that all the moisture and heat brought forth some really interesting mushrooms. Otherwise, that about wraps up another great week at the sanctuary.